It started with a lie. Not the small, harmless kind you brush off in the name of trust. No, this one wore expensive perfume and carried a suitcase tag for Paris, while her heels were still echoing off the polished floors of a restaurant in downtown Los Angeles. My name's Ryan. I own a chain of high-end beauty and tattoo salons in New York now, but back then, I was just a guy running a modest barber studio in California, married to a woman named Emily. She had the kind of smile that made waiters forget your order and the ambition that could swallow cities whole. Emily told me she was flying to Europe for a business conference. Marketing executives from all over the world will be there, she said, zipping her sleek silver suitcase with the elegance of a seasoned liar. It's a big opportunity. I kissed her goodbye at the airport, tucked a handwritten note into her bag that said, "Proud of you. Bring back a little Eiffel Tower for my desk." Turns out, I should have asked for a receipt. 3 days later, while I was closing up the shop, my buddy Zach sent me a photo. No caption, just a grainy shot taken from across the street. But it hit harder than a freight train. There she was, Emily. Not in Paris, not in a conference hall, but in a dimly lit booth of a romantic LA restaurant, leaning in close to some well-dressed stranger I didn't recognize. Her hand on his wrist, his lips way too close to her ear. I didn't respond to Zach. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even feel surprised. What I felt was cold, clear, because the thing about betrayal, it doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It's quiet, subtle, like the sound of a zipper closing on a lie. I spent that night driving, thinking, planning. While she was sipping wine over candlelight, I was making calls. Lawyers, a real estate agent, a friend who worked in tech and knew how to recover deleted texts. I wasn't going to burn her world down. I was going to disconnect it, wire by wire. The next morning, I smiled and called her, told her I missed her voice, asked if she saw the Eiffel Tower yet. She lied, smooth as butter. The Eiffel Tower's beautiful. I think I'm in love with this city. She wasn't in love with the city. She was in love with the fantasy of who she could be without me watching. But I was watching now. I waited until she returned. Until she walked into our home like nothing had happened. Until she unpacked her suitcase and fake jet lag. I kissed her cheek, helped her carry her bag upstairs. Then I opened the folder I had printed. Photos, message logs, location pings. I didn't yell. I simply handed her the folder. She flipped through the first few pages, laughed nervously. Is this some kind of joke? I looked her dead in the eyes. Only if you think perjury is funny. The panic started setting in. She went pale, tried to reach for my hand. Ryan, wait. I can explain. But I was already walking out the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it. Calmly, precisely, like the first chapter in a long book of consequences. People think revenge is loud, explosive, fireworks and screaming matches. Mine was paper, ink, fine print. After handing Emily the folder, I didn't go to a bar to drown my sorrows. I went straight to my lawyer's office. Quentin Drake, a lean, fast-talking guy with a Brooklyn accent and a talent for finding legal angles like a chess master spots traps. She cheated? He asked, flipping through the documents. She lied, manipulated, probably used our joint card for her little LA getaway. I want the house, Quentin, and I want to do it without giving her the satisfaction of a fight. He nodded slowly. Then we don't scream. We file. Over the next 2 weeks, I played my part like a man still nursing heartbreak, while Quentin moved behind the scenes. Quiet motions. Strategic filings. We built the case around deceit, asset misuse, and emotional manipulation. California law is tricky, but if you know where to press, the whole system leans in your favor. Meanwhile, Emily acted like nothing happened. She made dinner, laughed at TV shows, wore that silk robe like it still meant something. She didn't know I had already changed the locks on the property deed. She only figured it out the night I served her papers. The envelope was left on the kitchen counter. I wasn't there. I had booked a room downtown. Gave her space. I wasn't going to comfort a woman who tried to sell me loyalty in exchange for secrecy. What I didn't expect was the message from her father. I hadn't spoken to Carl in years. Conservative, loud, always had a thinly veiled joke about people like my French immigrant grandfather. He'd made our wedding day a political lecture. But now he was calling to say he was disappointed in her. Turns out, I had anonymously forwarded the photos and call logs to her parents. They were appalled. Not because of the affair, necessarily, but because she'd lied to them. Made them believe she was in Europe giving a keynote presentation on marketing analytics, while she was actually holed up in a Los Angeles hotel with a stranger. You didn't deserve that, Ryan. her mother said in a surprisingly soft voice. I'm sorry. Truly. It didn't make me feel better. But it did confirm something. The lie was collapsing from all sides. Emily tried to call me dozens of times. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The process had begun. A month later, we were in court. She tried to argue for half the house, claimed I was spitefully punishing her. My lawyer calmly pointed out that she had spent thousands from our joint savings account on her trip, had misrepresented her whereabouts, and, based on the timing, had likely begun the affair before she even bought the ticket. The judge didn't blink. I got the house. She got the humiliation of walking out of the courtroom red-eyed and alone. But I didn't stop there. I listed the house for sale 2 weeks later. It sold fast. Luxury properties in California don't sit long if priced right. I could have stayed, but I didn't want walls that echoed with old lies. I was halfway through packing the last room when the doorbell rang. It was Emily. She looked smaller. Not physically, but something in her had shrunk. The boldness. The arrogance. It had collapsed under the weight of consequence. She tried to smile. Can we talk? I didn't move. Just leaned against the doorframe. She swallowed. I made a mistake. I don't expect things to go back to how they were. But maybe you could forgive me. Maybe we could talk. Start again. Even just friends. I blinked. Then laughed. Not cruelly. Just honestly. The kind of laugh you give when the absurdity becomes too large to ignore. You want to be friends? I repeated, after treating me like a placeholder in my own life. I'm sorry, she whispered. But I was wondering, the house, the sale. Could I maybe get a small portion of? That was it. I spat. Not at her. Not in rage. Just at the floor near her heels. I gave you everything, I said. And you gambled it for a secret you didn't even care enough to hide well. Then I closed the door. That should have been the end. But life? Life has a twisted sense of humor. Because 5 years later, she would find me again. Only this time, she wouldn't recognize the man she once betrayed. You know how they say time heals all wounds? They're wrong. Time doesn't heal anything. It just gives you space to build something stronger around the scar. 5 years had passed since I closed that door on Emily. In that time, I didn't just move on, I evolved. I traded in the California sun for the sharp skyline of New York. I built my life from the ground up. And this time, I built it for me. I opened my first salon in the East Village. It started as a blend of high-end grooming and tattoo artistry, something that hadn't really been done before in one place. People thought I was insane. Beauty and tattoos? Who's your target audience? Pirates and influencers? Turns out, it worked. Maybe it was the vibe. Maybe it was the sarcasm. Maybe it was that I genuinely gave a damn about every customer who walked through the door. Word got out. One shop became two. Two became a chain. Somewhere in between, I met Leah. She wasn't flashy. She didn't play games. She saw me. Not the headlines, not the hustle, just me. And for the first time in years, I let someone in without scanning for red flags first. We were on a business trip, real one this time, heading to Florida to scout a location for my first West Coast adjacent expansion. I had finally decided to replant some roots in California, but from my terms this time. No ghosts. Leah was in the passenger seat, scrolling through coffee shop options on her phone when we hit a red light. That's when I saw her. She was standing on the sidewalk, next to a convenience store, squinting up at the sun like it owed her an apology. Her hair was tangled, her clothes were mismatched, and her arms clutched a ragged tote bag like it contained the last pieces of her identity. She was asking people for change. And then she turned and looked straight at me. I froze. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than I expected. It was Emily, but she didn't recognize me. Her eyes didn't widen. Her jaw didn't drop. She just shuffled toward the car window with a slight limp and tapped her knuckles against the glass. Got a couple bucks, man, she rasped, not even waiting for an answer. I just need a drink. I ain't eaten since yesterday. Leah looked at me. Do you? I shook my head slowly, then rolled down the window. Emily leaned in, her eyes dull and unfocused, then blinked at me. For a second, I saw something flicker, confusion, familiarity. Then it was gone. Anything helps, she muttered. I reached into the glove box, pulled out a 20, folded it once, held it out to her. She reached for it, then hesitated as our fingers brushed. Her eyes narrowed. Wait, do I know you? I smiled. Not cold, not cruel, just final. You used to. She blinked. What's your name? I didn't answer, just let the silence settle. And for a moment, I thought she might remember. But then she laughed. A dry, broken sound. Guess not. She took the bill and walked away. And I just sat there, Watching the woman who once stood in designer heels and lied about Paris, now stumbling into a liquor store with her shoelace untied. Leah said nothing. She didn't need to. Some ghosts don't haunt you forever. They just forget your name. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need closure. I was the closure. We didn't speak for the next few miles. Leah must have sensed it, that I wasn't ready to break the silence yet. She just placed her hand gently on my arm, the kind of small gesture that somehow says I get it louder than any words ever could. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was still, not numb, not cold, just centered, like I was watching a memory finally release its grip on my spine. Because here's the thing no one tells you about revenge. It doesn't feel like fire when it's over. It feels like air, like breathing for the first time without carrying someone else's betrayal on your chest. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her one last time, just to prove to myself it had all really happened. But she was gone. Not just from the street, but from the space in my life where she used to exist. And now? Now I had something better. I had peace. That night in the hotel, Leah and I ordered room service and watched some terrible action flick on cable. She didn't bring up Emily. Not once. Instead, she let the conversation drift to our plans for the salon opening, where we'd put the neon sign, how we'd theme the tattoo studio, whether to serve espresso or cold brew. But after the lights were out, and she was sleeping soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it hummed quietly above. My mind wandered backward, to the first time I met Emily. She was magnetic, smart, a little cruel, but it came off as confidence back then. We were young, ambitious, and drunk on the idea that love alone could hold us together. But love isn't glue. It's fire. And if you don't feed it honestly, it burns everything in its path. I remembered our first big fight. I remember the night she told me, "You're too safe, Ryan. Too predictable." As if stability was a flaw. As if loyalty was boring. What she didn't understand, what most people don't, is that loyalty isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. And the day she chose someone else behind my back, she didn't just betray our marriage. She declared herself a stranger to the version of me who would have walked through hell for her. That version died quietly the night I closed that folder. And in his place, I built a man who didn't chase ghosts. I didn't ruin her. She did, piece by piece, lie by lie, glass by shattered glass. And now, 5 years later, she didn't even remember the man she left behind. But I did, not out of pain, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for the man who endured it, rose anyway, and never looked back once he was free. I hadn't stepped foot in California in 5 years. Not since the court hearing. Not since I watched Emily walk out of that sterile white courtroom with red-rimmed eyes and no idea how much worse things would get for her after that. But now, I was coming back. Not as a husband. Not as a heartbroken man. As a business owner. As a success story. As me, fully rebuilt. We landed in San Diego a few days later. The air smelled the same. Ocean mist mixed with smog and overpriced cologne. But something in me had changed. The ghost that used to rattle around every palm tree and freeway sign? Gone. I wasn't here to revisit memories. I was here to open ink and aura, my 7th salon, and the first one outside New York. A clean space. Warm lighting. Sharp steel. Custom murals. The kind of place people would fly in just to experience. Beauty and ink, under one name. Our brand. Leah and I met with contractors, did a walkthrough of the location, ran down launch timelines. She handled logistics while I made small talk with staff, cracking sarcastic jokes to keep the mood light. But that night, alone in the rental suite, I stood on the balcony and looked out over the glittering coastline. And I felt it again. Not regret. Not sadness. Just the full-circle weirdness of it all. The last time I was here, I was breaking down the life I thought I'd spend decades in. Now I was building something brand new, brick by brick. A few days later, I visited the old neighborhood. I told myself it was just curiosity, a drive-by. No emotional strings. But as I turned onto the street where our house once stood, I realized something unexpected. It wasn't our house anymore. It was painted navy blue now, with white shutters, and "A home is where the wine is" sign staked in the lawn. A couple was in the driveway, maybe mid-30s, laughing as they unpacked groceries. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I smiled. That house wasn't haunted anymore. Not by her. Not by me. It was someone else's fresh start. I didn't stop the car. I didn't take a photo. I just kept driving. Later that evening, Leah and I were walking along a boardwalk when we passed by a tattoo parlor. A small, local one. A guy was outside smoking and flipping through a sketchbook. He looked up and did a double take. Hey, wait, are you Ryan King? I stopped. Depends who's asking. He grinned. Man, I follow your studio on Insta. You run Ink and Aura, right? You're the guy who did that butterfly sleeve for El Rivera? I nodded. Guilty. He stuck out his hand. Respect, man. That was clean work. You opening one out here? Just getting started, I said. We chatted for a bit, swapped info. He offered to come to our opening event and even sent a few artist referrals. As we walked away, Leah bumped her shoulder into mine. Look at you. Local legend already. I chuckled. Let's not jinx it. But deep down, I felt it. That thing no revenge could ever buy. No courtroom could award. Pride. Not in what I had taken from someone else, but in what I had built for myself. The opening of Ink and Aura San Diego was only a week away, and the buzz was building fast. Social media was doing its thing. Photos of the soft-lit interior, sneak peeks of our custom ink wall, stories reposted by influencers who'd flown in for early appointments. I'd seen a dozen grand openings by now, but this one? It felt different. Like planting a new flag where an old version of me had buried his heartbreak. Leah was running point on guest invites and media. I was finalizing artist rotations and personally curating the playlist, a mix of moody alt-rock, lo-fi jazz, and a little French indie that reminded me of my roots. It was my version of therapy. Then came the email. It was from our PR inbox. I usually didn't check that one directly, but Leah had forwarded it to me with a one-line message. Recognize the name? The subject line was simple, tattoo collaboration inquiry, freelance artist. I opened the message, already half expecting spam. But when I saw the signature, everything slowed. Amelia R. King. King. I read it again, just to be sure. My breath didn't catch. My hands didn't shake. But something in my chest moved, like the last drawer in a long-forgotten filing cabinet had creaked open by itself. Was it her? It couldn't be. She looked nothing like a tattoo artist when I knew her. Emily hated needles. Said tattoos were permanent mistakes for people who hate commitment. Ironic considering. No, this was someone else. Probably. Still, I clicked the portfolio link. It was bare bones, just 5 photos. All black ink, minimalist line work. A small crescent moon behind an ear. A stitched rose on a wrist. An old compass needle, crooked and faded like it had lost its sense of direction. I stared at the email again. No profile photo. No social links. Just the name. And a return address, from Florida. My jaw tensed. It was her. Or at least, what was left of her. That night, I sat on the hotel balcony again, laptop still open, email draft blinking. I hadn't responded. I didn't know what to say. Leah came out barefoot, holding 2 mugs of tea. You okay? I nodded. Got a weird inquiry today. A name I wasn't ready for. She sat beside me, quiet for a moment. From your past. From the wreckage. She didn't press. She just looked at me and said, so what now? You going to invite the ghost in? I stared at the screen. I could ignore it. Delete it. Pretend the message never came. But something in me, that old, sarcastic, strategic part, wanted to see just how far she'd fallen. Not out of cruelty. Out of curiosity. Out of closure. I replied, thanks for reaching out. We're currently reviewing local artists for pop-up guest spots. If you're in the area, feel free to drop by next week during our opening hours. RK. I didn't expect her to show up, but part of me hoped she would. Because I wasn't that man she tried to break anymore. And maybe, just maybe, she needed to see that with her own eyes. Grand opening day. The salon was alive, buzzing like a hive on caffeine. Neon signs glowed, espresso machines hissed, ink guns buzzed in the background while laughter echoed through the minimalist concrete space. We had press, influencers, local artists, curious walk-ins, and the usual crowd of people who just wanted to be part of something new. Leah floated through it all effortlessly, clipboard in hand. Charm turned up to 11. I was in my element too, cracking jokes with clients, greeting the press, showing off the custom mural a Brooklyn artist had flown into paint. Every corner of the place felt like me. Then, at exactly 2:13 p.m., she arrived. I didn't see her walk in. I heard someone at the front desk ask, do you have an appointment? And then a quiet, hoarse voice respond, no. I'm here for Ryan King. I turned around slowly, and there she was. Not the Emily I remembered. Not the woman who once curated every detail of her outfit down to the shade of lipstick that matched her shoes. This Emily wore faded jeans and a plain black tee. Her hair was pulled back messily. Her arms, once polished and moisturized and magazine-ready, now bore faint ink of her own. One wrist had a cracked compass, the same one from the portfolio. She looked thinner, older, but not in the way time does, in the way consequence does. Her eyes scanned the studio like someone walking through a dream she didn't know belonged to someone else. Then they landed on me, and she froze. I could almost see the memory flood back into her face. The look of someone recognizing a song from a lifetime ago. A blink, a staggered breath. "Ryan," she whispered. I didn't move, just gave her a nod. "Emily." Some of the staff looked over, probably curious why this quiet, worn-out woman was talking to the founder like she'd known him in a past life. Which she had. I gestured toward the back lounge. "Let's talk." We sat across from each other on a low leather couch, coffee table between us. She fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve. I stayed silent, waiting. She finally spoke. "I didn't come here to make a scene. I got your message. I thought maybe that we could work together." I said calmly. She swallowed. "That you'd want to know I was trying." "To do what? Fix your life? Or borrow from mine?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I know I don't deserve anything from you." I stayed quiet. I was in a really dark place after everything. I burned bridges. With my parents. My job. That guy she trailed off. I don't even remember his name anymore. "Isn't that pathetic?" "No," I said. "It's convenient." That stung, I could tell. But she didn't argue. She just nodded slowly. I started drawing again. Ink helped. Kept my hands busy. Gave me something to care about. "And now you want a second chance?" I asked. "No, I don't think I deserve one. I saw what you built. I wanted to see it with my own eyes." She looked up at me then, and for the first time in years, I saw something that wasn't arrogance or manipulation. I saw regret. Not the performative kind. The kind that eats people from the inside out. I leaned back. Crossed my arms. "You were the one who said I was too predictable. Too boring. You left me because I made you feel small. Remember?" She winced. "I was wrong." "I know." Silence hung between us for a few long seconds. Then I stood. "I appreciate that you came clean," I said. "I really do. But I don't hire people out of pity, Emily. I built this place from pain, not for it." She nodded. No tears. No theatrics. Just a quiet breath. "I understand." As I walked her to the door, she turned to me one last time. "You're not the man I left behind." "No," I said. "He was just the man you never took the time to know." She stepped outside, into the sunlight. And this time, I didn't look back. The sun was still high when Emily disappeared down the block, swallowed by the crowd, unnoticed and unremarkable, just like she'd left me once. Only now, it was her turn to vanish without ceremony. I stood at the studio door for a moment, hand resting on the frame, watching her silhouette shrink until it was gone. No music swelled, no poetic ending, just footsteps on pavement and a heavy kind of quiet. Then I exhaled. It was over. Not just the conversation, the whole thing. The 5-year echo, the invisible weight I'd been dragging through every success, every city block, every laugh with Leah. It was gone. I walked back into the studio. Leah spotted me from across the room and raised an eyebrow as if to ask, "You okay?" I gave her the smallest nod, but one packed with everything it needed to say. She smiled and got back to work. No drama, no jealousy, no questions. She trusted me to have faced whatever ghost had shown up at the door and put it to rest. That's the kind of woman she was. The kind Emily never learned how to be. Later that night, after the crowd cleared and the lights dimmed, I sat alone on one of the tattoo chairs, flipping through the day's appointment book. My team had killed it. The buzz was real. We were already getting new bookings into next month. But my mind kept replaying that moment. "You're not the man I left behind." She was right. That man was gone. Because pain either poisons you or it pushes you. And I chose to let it push. I didn't become a success to spite her. I didn't build my salons so one day she'd beg to be part of them. No, I did it for me. Because revenge fades. But self-worth? That sticks. Leah and I went out for drinks that night. Nothing fancy. Just a rooftop bar overlooking the water. We laughed. We talked about the launch. About franchising in Austin. About where we go next. About nothing at all. At one point, she leaned into me and whispered, "You look lighter." I smiled. "I feel it." And I did. Not because Emily was gone, she'd been gone a long time, but because I no longer needed her to be anything for me to be whole. 6 months passed. Ink and Aura didn't just take off, it exploded. The San Diego location became a West Coast staple for creatives and celebrities alike. People flew in from Seattle, Phoenix, even Toronto just to sit in one of our chairs. New York was still the heart of it all, but California had become our West Coast soul. Leah and I found our rhythm, too. We weren't just partners in business. We were partners in peace. No games, no second-guessing, no wondering if I was enough. She didn't try to fix me. She just stood next to me while I built myself. It was quiet success. The kind that doesn't scream for attention, it simply is. Then one morning, a package showed up at the Manhattan studio. No return address. No postmark. Inside was a single white envelope. My name. Handwritten. No stamp. I opened it carefully, already knowing, deep down, who it was from. Ryan, you don't owe me anything. Not your attention, not your forgiveness, not even your time to read this. But I had to say it. You were the best thing I ever had. And the one thing I ruined completely. I've tried to rebuild, bits and pieces. I work now. I tattoo part-time in a small shop. Nothing glamorous, but it pays enough to keep the lights on. I've been clean for a while now. Still fighting some days. I don't know if you'll believe me, but what you built, it inspired me. Not because I want a piece of it. Because it proved something. That people can come back from ruin. You did. Maybe someday I will too. If nothing else, thank you for showing me how. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it and dropped it into the drawer next to the ink cartridges, the one no one ever opens. Not because I cared, but because it deserved a place. Not a pedestal. Not the trash. Just a quiet corner in a life she no longer belonged to. That afternoon, I mentored a new apprentice, a shy girl from Queens who had never tattooed a client before. Hands shaking, voice barely above a whisper. You ever mess up? She asked nervously. I smiled. Once. I stayed married too long. She blinked, then laughed, unsure if she was allowed to. I handed her the needle. Just breathe. Confidence isn't something you have. It's something you build. As I watched her place the first careful lines on a fake practice arm, I realized something. The past had stopped speaking. It was whispering for years, through hotel balconies, through echoes of perfume, through courtroom silence and barstool glances. But now, silence and peace. It was a late Friday evening in Manhattan. The last client had just left. The floor was swept, the ink guns silent, and a soft vinyl crackled from the corner speaker. One of those old jazz records I'd picked up from a sidewalk crate years ago. I stood alone in the center of the studio, staring at the wall where we'd stenciled our motto in black lettering. Ink your story. Wear it proud. I smiled to myself. Because that was the truth of it, wasn't it? We all carried stories. Painful, beautiful, messy, unfinished. Some people tried to hide theirs. Others tried to forget. But me? I wore mine. Not on my skin, but in my life. In every salon I opened. In every person I mentored. In every time I chose peace over payback. There were moments in the last few months where I caught myself thinking back. Not out of regret, but out of respect for the man I used to be. The one who smiled while being lied to. The one who handed over trust like it was indestructible. The one who believed that love meant giving second chances, even when it cost him the first one. But that version of me, he didn't die. He evolved. He got smarter, sharper, kinder, even, just not to people who played games with hearts like poker chips. I never saw Emily again after that day in San Diego. The letter was her last whisper. And to be honest, I never needed more than that. Some ghosts don't deserve a second haunting. One evening, Leah and I walked through Central Park, her arm wrapped through mine, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our boots. She glanced at me with that knowing look she always had. You ever think about how different life would have been if none of it happened? I didn't hesitate. Yeah, and I'm glad it did. She tilted her head. Even the betrayal? Especially the betrayal, I said. Because without it, I might still be pretending. Living halfway. Trusting the wrong person. Being a smaller version of myself. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Well, I like this version. So do I. And that's the truth. Life doesn't warn you when it's about to break your heart. It doesn't send a memo when everything you built with love is about to get kicked in the teeth by someone you trusted. But it does give you a choice. To crumble. Or to rise. I rose. Not to get even. But to get free. Because revenge is satisfying for a moment. But rebuilding yourself? That lasts a lifetime. Moral of the story. Sometimes, the people who betray you are the ones who hand you the tools to rebuild the strongest version of yourself. Don't chase closure. Be your own. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps the channel grow.